Good afternoon and welcome to Eliot Bostar, legislative candidate from District 29. Thank you, Eliot, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meeting today. My name is Gina Ragland, and joining me today is Susan DeCamp, Bob Lassen, who are AARP lead advocacy volunteers. We also have with us today Dave Holmquist, who is the AARP Nebraska state president, and Emily Wick is joining us from the AARP state office. Eliot, we appreciate your taking the time to meet and discuss issues of importance to the 50-plus voter and their families across Nebraska. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with AARP members across your district prior to the election. So with that, Eliot, if you want to start off by giving us a background about yourself and your campaign in maybe 5 minutes or less, that would be great. And once we've done that, we'll actually move into the questions. So welcome and go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I currently serve as the executive director of Conservation Nebraska. Which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on environmental and conservation policy in the state of Nebraska. I've been doing that for about almost 8 years now. And in addition to that, I serve on the board of directors for the Lincoln Electric System, our local electric utility. And I was appointed to that position by Mayor Beitler. And I was appointed to the Lincoln Climate Resiliency Task Force by Mayor Gaylor Baird. So a lot of my work and experience for the last 8 years has been around environmental and conservation policy in Nebraska. Those are the issues that really brought me into the race because we have significant challenges to address in Nebraska. But that being said, there are many important issues that deserve focus and attention. And I look forward to learning about all of them and working on them and working with the community to really address what we need to do to make Nebraska the best possible place to live.
Nebraska, nice. Thank you, Eliot, for your introduction there. We provided you now with a set of 3 questions, again, pertaining to the 50-plus in Nebraska. We've allotted 5 minutes for each of those questions. And our first question today comes surrounding helping people stay in their homes and communities. And State President Dave Holmquist is going to take that one. So go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Eliot. It's a pleasure to have you on the call today. We want to talk about livable communities. So a livable community is one that is safe and secure. It has housing that is affordable. In other words, no more than 30% of one's income is spent on housing. Has transportation options that allow individuals to travel by multiple means. And has a supportive community with features and services for people of all ages, which allow people to remain in their communities as they age. So our question is, what steps will you take to ensure all Nebraskans have access to livable communities?
Great, and this is such a fantastic question. And I think that there are, as you listed, there are a great many elements that make a community an attractive place to live, an attractive place to grow old, and all of those are important. Some of the specific things that I think are relevant for our conversation at the moment are, so I think that we should be investing in and expanding Nebraska's aging and disability resource centers. They provide a very important assistance to those in our communities. I think that we should be investing in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as well, because as you mentioned, so much of being able, a community can be as attractive as we make it, but if people can't afford to live there, then it isn't an option. So investing in Nebraska's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and then also adequately funding our area agencies on aging would also be, I think, an appropriate and valuable tool in helping accomplish this. And then I think for a lot of communities across the state, ensuring that telehealth access is adequate, because again, it can be affordable and it can be the place you want to live. But if you have healthcare needs, you need to be able to access it. And my family is from rural Nebraska, and many members of my family had to move away from the farm, which is where they wanted to stay, and come to Lincoln or move to Omaha. And access to telehealth would really, I think, be a benefit that would help people remain where they want to live for as long as they can. Yeah, I hope that answers some of that.
Thank you. I apologize for the interruption with a phone call.
Not at all.
Great. Thank you, Eliot. Our second question, we're going to switch gears to health, caregiving, and home and community-based care, and Susan DeCamp will take that question. So go ahead, Susan.
Good afternoon and welcome, Eliot. Caregivers help older persons live independently at home by providing assistance with activities such as bathing and dressing and performing medical and nursing tasks such as administering medicine and wound care. However, caregivers often provide these services with little or no training and also little or no pay. So with that in mind, I have a two-part question, and I realize you have already answered some of these things, so you may have a little more you want to add. But first off, would you support helping caregivers with things such as paid leave, respite services, telehealth, which you've already answered, and access to education and training? And secondly, how would you protect or expand paid services and supports, as well as financial security that allows more seniors to live independently in their homes and communities?
Excellent. So, the first part of your question, yes. So telehealth, I think, is an important element of this. I think paid leave is important for the workforce we're discussing right now, but to be honest, for every workforce in the state, and that is something that should be provided. These members of our community who provide this service are, we need to treat them as the valuable asset that they clearly are. And so I think, we need to ensure that they're receiving the wages, and then the general professional respect required to, one, attract people into these positions, but also ensure that we have appropriate retention. As in the information that you provided prior to this, the numbers related to how many in our state, in our communities, in our country that are going to be requiring assistance services are only going up. And this is such an important industry that we need to get people into. Quality individuals that feel valued and feel fairly compensated and appreciated by the state in what sort of reimbursements they're getting for their services. And I also, sorry, I'm just referencing some other notes that I jotted down that I think are worth mentioning. So, I think that one thing that we should also look at is looking at incentives for attracting people into these fields. So whether that's student loan repayment programs to help people that are coming into the field with the education and the experience that we want, and then especially identifying incentives for individuals that are willing to work in really high demand areas. We need to better fit the supply of these services with the needs in our state. So I would look at, really any creative solution that would help incentivize people to come into this work. And then they need to be fairly compensated in order for us to keep them in the work. And that, and I think the last point I'll make is, from my conversations with other members of the legislature and others that are involved in some of this, we need to provide better oversight of the executive administrative branch administration of programs related to the providing of these services. And so I think that's really important, because we can have all of the means in place that attract people and retain people and provide the best services we can. But if we're not also having the accountability and oversight, we probably aren't doing the best job that we should be.
Great. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you, Eliot. Our last question now, we're going to move into a different part of the 50+ livelihood in nursing facility quality. So Bob Lassen will take that question. Go ahead, Bob. I think you might be on mute, Bob.
There we go. Eliot, thank you again for being on the video. My question has to do with nursing facility quality and access also. There's an estimated 6,600 Nebraskans reside in one of Nebraska's 211 nursing homes. By 2040, the University of Nebraska Omaha projects that number will more than double to almost 14,000. I think you made mention of that number earlier. Due to a variety of factors over the past years, Nebraska has seen an increase in nursing facilities having to close and residents having to relocate elsewhere. How will you ensure that Nebraska residents receive quality nursing home care, including ensuring an adequate nursing workforce, education, training, and proper reimbursement? Now, I think you've dealt with a lot of these particular issues, but if you could expand a little bit on how rural communities could be helped and some of the proper reimbursement levels that may be needed.
Great, thank you. So, I think fundamentally, nursing facilities are continued to, they're asked to continue to do more with less. So we need to address that. Reimbursement, we have a lot of ground to make up when it comes to reimbursement rates. So that needs to be a focus. And then I think that it's worth having specific reimbursement rates for facilities that are focused on particularly challenging and costly care, focusing on Alzheimer's and dementia care, and being able to appropriately care for individuals with mental illness. So providing the reimbursement structure where facilities can take on more of the challenges that members of our community are facing, and that they're able to do that in a way that it isn't a loss for them to try to help people that have more problems. So I think that's really important. And then, larger reimbursement rates mean that we can have more competitive wages in our facilities, and that's important. And we should have competitive wages for, including the staff at the facilities. So not just necessarily the healthcare workers, but including, janitorial and nutrition assistance staff, CNAs, because it's the collective team that makes the facility and the care valuable. Every piece of this is important, and we need to ensure that we're attracting and retaining the best people who are doing this really, really critical work for our communities and our family members. On top of it, again, and I kind of talked about this before, but providing incentives to attract individuals to facilities in rural areas, or in just high demand areas. I think that that's an important piece, because we shouldn't have to have, you know, our family members move across the state to receive care so that they can, you know, live in an environment that provides for their needs.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. And I think you made a great point there. You know, the transfer trauma that is associated with many residents who are not able to find a bed in their local community, especially in our rural parts of the state. We see that a lot more now with facilities in receivership and having to close. And if they are Medicaid, having to be relocated to a community that might be 100 miles plus away, the social isolation and the transfer trauma on top of everything else they're dealing with is something. So I very much appreciate your thoughts and comments on that. So thank you again, Elliot. We're now coming to the end of our meeting. In closing, I'd like to offer you the final minutes to offer any closing thoughts or comments that you have, or messages you want to send to the constituents that you're representing. So the floor is back to you.
Great. Well, thank you all for your thoughtful questions. This is a critically important, these are critically important issues that we need to address and make sure that we're focused on. And that's only going to become more and more clear as time goes on. And you know, as was now mentioned a couple times, the demographic shifts in our communities and our state are changing in such a way that this is really important. So I'll just say that, you know, I'm not an expert in this, but I, as for all issues and areas of policy, I first and foremost will listen to those who do this work, who are on the receiving end of these services, and want to work with everyone to ensure that we can meet the needs of the residents of our state, and make sure that we're doing it in a responsible way, that we're treating everyone in our state the same way that we would want our own family to be treated. And so I want to thank you. And, you know, if I have the privilege of being elected, I will absolutely want to work with all of you and hear from the members of the community about what the specific actions are that need to be taken to improve our state.
Thank you again, Elliot, for taking the time to visit with us. We wish you the best with your campaign, and most importantly, thank you again for meeting with AARP Nebraska.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.